praise Him and we glorify Him as He ought to be praised and glorified. And we pray for peace and for blessings on all His noble messengers, and in particular on the last of them all, the blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Respected deans and deputy deans and heads of department and professors and students here at the International Islamic University in Kuala Lumpur, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our subject, a very important subject, is entitled Surah Al Kahfi, or as the Malay pronounce it, Surah Al Kahfi. Surah Al Kahfi and the different dimensions of space and of time. The companions of the Prophet ﷺ were sitting talking amongst themselves when he, the Prophet ﷺ, came and asked, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "We are talking about the signs of the last day. Alamat as-sa'a, akhir zaman." And then he said, as only a prophet could speak, that the last day would not come. Then he mentioned 10 signs. And these have come to be known as the 10 major signs. They are located in Sahih Bukhari, they are located in Sahih Muslim. And they have not been given in the chronological sequence in which they will occur. Number one, Dajjal, the false Messiah, who will seek to impersonate the true Messiah. Number two, Gog and Magog, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, who are human beings. Endowed by Allah with great power, indestructible power, but who use their power to oppress, who are essentially godless. Number three, the return of the Son of Mary, the most powerful voice in history. The most powerful voice in history to prophesy the return of the true Messiah, the Son of Mary. Nabi Isa alayhi salam is the voice of Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Number four, Dukhan, smoke, something which will envelop the skies. My opinion, and whenever I give my opinion, I urge that my opinion should never be accepted unless and until you are convinced that it is correct. That Dukhan is probably 20-25 years away from now. This is coming and going. We have an engineering problem here. Number five, Dabbatul Ard, a creature or beast of the Ard, which is the land, the earth, the material universe. And more often than not, when the word land is used in the context of Akhir al-Zaman, refers to Al-Ardul Muqaddas, or the Holy Land. Number six, that the sun will rise from the west. Number 7, 8 and 9, 3, Khusuf, plural Khas. A movement of the earth, a shaking of the earth, in which the earth moves and sinks down, something sinks down. one in the east, one in the west, and one in Arabia. Number 10, that a fire will come out of Yemen and drive people to their place of assembly. We are concerned in these 10 with number 1, Dajjal. There is a chapter in this book, Jerusalem in the Quran, which was written 10 years ago, on Dajjal. I am now attempting to write a book on the subject of Dajjal. I don't know how many years it's going to take before I can finish it. Dajjal is a being created by Allah, but an evil being. No human being has been created evil. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. No human being has been created evil. No jinn has been created evil. Allah has created the human being and the jinn and then given them the free choice. A self-directed will, freedom of will to choose. And it is their choice whether they be believers or disbelievers. That's what it means to be a human being or a jinn. Dajjal has no such choice. He's created as an evil being. Human beings and jinn are going to stand before Allah for judgment and will either be rewarded or punished with heaven or hell. Not so for Dajjal, because he's created as an evil being. Allah speaks of that at the end of the Quran. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ. Allah creates evil. Where is that evil? Here is the evil. It's Dajjal. This evil being has been programmed to impersonate the true Messiah. And of course we know about the true Messiah that he is to return. When they saw him die on the cross before their very eyes, they boasted. وَقَوْلِهِمْ إِنَّا قَتَلْنَا الْمَسِيحَ عِيسَى ابْنَ مَرْيَمَ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. We will kill him. What they did not know, and no one knew for 600 years, was no, they did not kill him. No, they did not crucify him. Allah made it appear like that. Allah raised it. But where did he go? If Allah raised him. And he is to come back. In fact, his return is not only one of the 10 we just mentioned, but in Surah Al-Fussilat, وَإِنَّهُ, and this word can be recited two ways. The Arab did not come down with Jibreel alayhi salam. وَإِنَّهُ لَعِلْمٌ لِلسَّاعَةِ وَإِنَّهُ لَعَلَمٌ لِلسَّاعَةِ. And surely he, Jesus, is the sign par excellence, the sign of all signs, the key to the subject, meaning his return. And Nabi Muhammad ﷺ said that when he returns, he's going to be hakim, one who rules, establishes government, establishes rule. And his rule will be a rule which cannot be rivaled. And hence the ruling power in the world. And he will rule from the throne of Nabi Dawood alayhi salam according to the Torah, from the holy state of Israel. And if you establish an Israel with a rule which cannot be challenged by any other rule, then this qualifies as a ruling state. And so if Dajjal has to impersonate the true Messiah and deceive Banu Israel into accepting him as the true Messiah, since they rejected the true Messiah, he also will have to rule the world from Jerusalem. In order to do that, number one, he'd have to liberate the Holy Land from Muslim rule, and this analysis is already here in this book. And he's already done that in 1917. He'll have to bring the Jews back to the Holy Land to reclaim it as their own. He's already done that. He has already done that between 1918 and 1948. He'll have to restore a state of Israel in the Holy Land and get the Jews to believe that this is the Holy Israel of David and Solomon alayhi salam. He's already done that when Israel was born in 1948. He'll have to cause Israel to become once again the ruling state in the world. Israel is boasting today that they control the United States of America. They do it openly. Ariel Sharon said, we control the United States. And every political scientist knows that the Jews control the American Congress. So Israel is already ruling the world from behind the hijab. But Israel has to rule the world without any hijab. And that is about to occur. We can now anticipate events to occur. We are not prophets. We don't have angels and jinn whispering into our ear. What nonsense. If a businessman can anticipate events in the market, why can't we anticipate events as well in the world of politics and economics? What's wrong with that? Well, if Israel is about to rule the world, well then we don't have to wait long before Dajjal will appear. Said the Prophet ﷺ, born of Jewish parents, appear as a human being, ruling the world from Jerusalem and declaring, I am the Messiah. In fact, 15 years ago, I said, we are probably 50 years away from that event. And they laughed at me in New York. They're not laughing anymore today. No. So I changed my wording and I said, well, children now at school should live to see it, and nobody quarrels anymore. Well, then where is Dajjal? If it appears very clear, he's already accomplished most of his mission. We turn now to the famous hadith known as the hadith of Tamim al-Dari. Time seems to move faster in the Department of Engineering than the rest of the world. I wonder why. We go to the hadith of Tamim al-Dari in Sahih Muslim. Tamim al-Dari was a Christian Palestinian, converted, became Muslim, and came to the Prophet ﷺ in Medina and said, narrated something to him. It was either an actual event or a dream or a vision. My understanding, it was a vision. My opinion, it's a vision. And then the Prophet said to the people, sit down, I have something to say to you. Tamim al-Dari came to me and told me something about Dajjal which confirms what I've been saying to you. And then we have the event narrated from the lips of the Prophet ﷺ. The Tamim al-Dari and some companions, 40 of them, went on board a ship. And a storm blew the ship for a whole month until they came to land, and it was an island. We're not told how they knew it was an island. And when they got on shore, they were confronted by a very hairy creature or beast with so much hair you could hardly tell which side was head and which side was tail. And then the beast spoke and said, I am Jassasa, spy. So it's an island about 1 mile journey by sea from the Arab world, and an island with expertise in spying and espionage. I usually add James Bond kind of stuff. So Jassasa said, there's someone waiting for you, pointing to a monastery which was lying in ruins. So we know that this is an island in which eventually religion will crumble, will be in ruins. And their churches and monasteries are going to be sold to McDonald's and to Pizza Hut and to, you name it. Yeah. An island will eventually become essentially atheist. And they hurried to that monastery lying in ruins, and there they found the Jah. He was in chains, his hands chained to his neck and his feet chained. And he asked a number of questions and then declared, I am the Jah. And when I am released, he's not as yet released. So up to the third year perhaps in Medina, he had not as yet been released. When I'm released, I'll enter every town and every city, but he didn't mention kampung. He didn't mention villages, no, town and cities. And so from this hadith we know that when the Dajjal is released, it is from an island, this island, that he will launch his mission to eventually rule the world from the Holy Land, from Jerusalem. Which island is it? In this book, I offered an answer, my opinion. Island is Britain. And I gave the evidence to support my view. But the Prophet went on to say that when the Dajjal is released, he will live on earth for 40 days. One day, Yawmun Kasana, one day which would be like a year. Yawmun Kashahr, one day which would be like a month. We do have some scholars of physics here today. Yawmun Kajum'ah, one day which would be like a week. وَسَائِرُ أَيَّامِهِ كَأَيَّامِكُمْ, and all his days, meaning all the rest of his days, like your days. In this book, Jerusalem in the Quran, I have argued that when the Dajjal is on earth, but in a day which is like a year, hence not in our dimension of space and time, hence we cannot see him. And with Britain as his headquarters, I wish I could use a better word than headquarters, we notice strange things happening in the world. Namely, we found Britain becoming the ruling state in the world. And this was known as Pax Britannica in the language of international relations. And then, and of course, lots of relationship, unusual, baffling, mysterious relations between Britain and the Holy Land, between Britain and the Zionist movement. And then we found that there came a time when Britain was no longer the ruling state of the world. And Pax Britannica gave way to Pax Americana. And the United States became the next ruling state of the world. And we suggested, or rather we argued, that this is Dajjal in a day which is like a month. And then we said, well, the United States, Pax Americana will not last forever. In fact, it's going to last much less period of time than Pax America, Pax Britannica. And we are now living at that moment in time when Pax Americana is giving way to a third ruling state of the world, when Israel will take over from the United States, and this will be Pax Judaica. This is the first book to offer this thesis. To the best of my knowledge, it has not as yet been refuted in any scholarly way. But the book has provoked profound silence from the world of Islamic scholarship. It has neither been embraced nor has it been rejected straightly. I want to turn now to Surah Al Kahfi, because while there is no reference in the Quran to Dajjal by name, no, and this is the divine wisdom. Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam has made a reference to Dajjal connected to the Quran. He said, recite the first 10 verses of Surah Al Kahfi for protection from the fitna of Dajjal. And then he also said that Dajjal sees with his left eye. He's blind in the right eye. It looks like a bulging ring. But your Lord is not one eye. And every mu'min will be able to read the word Kahfi written on his forehead between his eyes. Whether the mu'min is katib or ghayru katib, whether he's literate or illiterate, he'll still be able to read. And our conclusion was that this was religious symbolism. And I have to hurry up with the lecture, otherwise we'll run out of time. That this was religious symbolism. And that the left eye symbolizes knowledge externally acquired, scientific knowledge. And the blind right eye symbolizes internal blindness. That the Western epistemology is wrong. That knowledge comes only from external observation and experimentation. And that the epistemology of the Quran is correct. That there are two sources of knowledge. One external and the other internal, that the heart can see. In the first 2 chapters of his book, The Reconstruction of Religious Thought in Islam, the eminent Indian, well, there was no Pakistan at that time, scholar Dr. Muhammad Iqbal, in the first 2 chapters of his book, argued in the best epistemological defense I've ever read of the epistemology of the Quran, argued the validity of knowledge internally acquired. But if the heart is to see, the heart needs nur. And the Prophet said, Allah's blessings be upon him, ittaqu firasatul mu'min, fear, the penetrating, internal, intuitive, spiritual insight and wisdom of the believer, the mu'min. فَإِنَّهُ يَنْزُرُ بِنُورِ اللَّهِ, because when he sees with more than a PhD from MIT. He sees with the nur of Allah. And Allah gives His nur to whomsoever Allah chooses to give. يَهْدِ اللَّهُ لِنُورِهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. It is when Allah gives us nur in the heart that we can see what otherwise cannot be seen internally. And so, in response to Dajjal's attack, where he seeks to reduce mankind to internal blindness, so the mind is cluttered up with knowledge and information externally acquired, but internally blind. Allah sent Surah Al Kahfi, and the Prophet said, alayhi salatu, recite, he said, recite Surah Al Kahfi on the day of Jum'ah, and you will receive nur from the samawat to the ard. And that nur will stay with you until the next Jum'ah. And it is with that nur that we now seek to focus attention on the story of the young men in the cave, and to demonstrate its link and its relevance to the study of the subject of Dajjal. These were young men who had faith and who proclaimed their faith. They didn't care about whether they lose their job, or lose their promotion, or lose esteem amongst their peers, or lose their US visa, or their green card. No. they stood up and they proclaimed the truth without regard for consequences. And any time you do that, they will target you. And these young men were targeted. And they therefore had to make hijrah, a word which is now very strange in the vocabulary of modern Muslims. A hijrah. And they fled to a cave and prayed to Allah for protection, as many of us will have to do tomorrow. And Allah put them to sleep. فَضَرَبْنَا عَلَىٰ آذَانِهِمْ فِي الْكَهْفِ سِنِينَ عَدَدًا. And they slept for many years. And then Allah woke them up at the end of their sleep. They slept for 300 years. 300 solar, 309 lunar. Why did He put them to sleep for such a long period of time? Was it only for protection? So they'll be safe? No, that's not the real reason. That is peripheral. لِنَعْلَمَ أَيُّ الْحِزْبَيْنِ أَحْصَى لِمَا لَبِثُوا أَمَدًا. Allah put them to sleep to teach the subject of time. That's why He put them to sleep. To teach the subject of time. And so now we go to this event to learn something about time. لِنَعْلَمَ أَيُّ الْحِزْبَيْنِ أَحْصَى لِمَا لَبِثُوا أَمَدًا. Sunlight entered the cave in the mornings and in the late afternoons. وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ. And the bodies of the young men rolled, morning to the right, and then rolled evenings to the left. So constantly, every day there is this rolling this way and that way. And if you and I were there, we would have fled in fright. What a strange thing going on there. How is it possible for the physical body, because what is it that is rolling? It's the physical body. Is it rolling in this world of space? Yes, left and right. Is it rolling in this world of time? Yes, morning and evening. Why is it rolling? Attracted to sunlight. With sunlight, the sunlight here in this world. How is it possible for the human body to survive for 300 years? Where will the human body get the energy from to roll for 300 years? No food, no water. For 300 years. Allah is teaching us a subject here. At the end of the 300 years, we woke them up. And then they questioned each other, how long have we been here? And one of them said to the other, maybe a day or a part of a day. An answer to which I responded with utter astonishment. What's wrong with him? Can't he see? If you have been there in the cave for 300 years, and then you wake up, the evidence would be visible. Your fingernails will be as long as from Ampang Point to KLCC. It is now clear that the reason why he said a day or a part of a day is because the young men did not spend 300 years in biological time. Their bodies did not age biologically. but their bodies were here in this world of space and time. And yet their bodies did not age biologically. What explanation could there be for it? Well, we toyed for a moment with the idea, well, maybe they were in the samawat. Because you know, in the samawat, you don't age. Women don't have to buy cosmetics. Not in the samawat. And that is the explanation. That after 300 years, they were still at the same age as they were when they went to sleep. But then we had a problem with that. How could we say that they were in the samawat when they were, the evidence is staring us in the face that they were here in this material universe. That is the samawat, and this is the material universe. The universe of space and time as we know space and time. Why? Because the bodies were rolling to the left and to the right, and they were rolling morning and evening. How do we explain their survival after 300 years without food and water? How do we explain the passage of 300 years without any biological evidence of aging? What is the link between their survival, the fulfillment of their need for energy, and the sunlight to which they were exposed? These are questions beyond my competence to answer. We can only offer a hypothesis, and that is that it is possible for a human being to be simultaneously in the material universe as well as in the samawat. That it is possible for the human being to penetrate the samawat, the different dimensions of space and time. This happened in the Mi'raj of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That there was also backward and forward movement in the Mi'raj. Perhaps a lesson was being taught to us when on 2 occasions Buraq came down. Or rather, Buraq re-entered this material universe. On the first occasion, the Prophet ﷺ dismounted from Buraq. And there was a container with water, with a lid on the water, on the container. He removed the lid, he drank the water, he replaced the lid. And when that caravan arrived in Mecca, this is Mecca, not Medina, the caravan confirmed that this actually happened. The water was drunk. And then Buraq came down a second time, and the Prophet ﷺ, where there was another caravan asleep, and called out to the people, the camel had broken loose. And they confirmed when they arrived in Mecca that yes, we heard a voice in the night time calling to us that your camel had broken loose. And we woke up and we did find that the camel was broken loose, and we caught the camel. And so during the Mi'raj, or the Isra, from Mecca to Jerusalem, there was backward and forward movement. between the samawat and the material universe. We have in Surah Al-Sabah another glimpse of the subject when Sulaiman alayhi salam turned to the jinn and asked for the throne of the Queen of Saba to be brought. And it was brought in the twinkling of an eye. And so it is possible, if you are able to penetrate the different worlds of space and time, it is possible to transport objects over long distances in the twinkling of an eye. In the story which is not the story, the event which is narrated in Surah Al-Baqarah, a traveler was passing by a town which was lying in ruins. And it has been universally accepted that it is Jerusalem. And he said, I don't think that this could ever be raised again. And Allah caused him to die. And then after 100 years, he was raised back to life. And he was asked, how long have you been here? And he said, a day or part of a day. But Allah said, no, you've been here for 100 years. Now look at your food. Lam yatasanna. I don't know if it's roti chana or biryani. 100 years had passed. It was lying there. It was lying there in this world of space and time, this material universe. And yet, like the bodies of the young men, did not suffer the effects of biological time, the passage of time. And so the food was simultaneously in this world of space and time, this material universe, and yet also in the samawat. Finally, they asked him for a miracle. And he'd always pointed to the Quran, this is my miracle, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. But on the authority of the Quran itself, we have evidence of a miracle. When he pointed to the moon, he pointed to the moon. And the evidence came from travelers who were traveling from a great distance away. That yes, we saw the moon, with one half of the moon on this side of the mountain and the other half on that side of the mountain. We saw it. In other words, projecting tremendous power. I hope the Pentagon doesn't listen to this lecture. Projecting tremendous power. Power which traverses beyond this world of space and time. Power which then traverses the samawat and then re-enters this world of space and time, this material universe, to split the moon in half. There seems to be a lot for us to learn about time and about the different worlds of time, about space and about the different worlds of space. There seems to me that there are lessons being taught in the Quran but amateurs like myself cannot penetrate those lessons. I'm reminded of my teacher, Maulana Fadlur Rahman Ansari, Maulana Dr. Muhammad Fadlur Rahman Ansari, rahimahullah, who taught us Islam at the Alima Institute of Islamic Studies in Pakistan. And he was a philosopher, not a scientist. But he used to be constantly lecturing on the subject of time. And I remember him quoting this hadith al-Qudsi, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "La tasubbu ad-dahr fa inni ana ad-dahr." Do not abuse time, because I, Allah, I am time. In other words, there is eternal time. There's endless time. There's absolute time, in addition to different dimensions of time. Last night, you saw your neighbor's house on fire, burning down. This morning at 10 o'clock, you passed by your neighbor's house and you saw it on fire. So you scratch your head. How could I see last night that which did not occur until this morning? Is there such a thing as a true dream? Of course, scientists have homework to do now. A true dream is a universal phenomenon. Your wife normally has true dreams, doesn't she? But what is the explanation? What is the metaphysical explanation of a true dream? We have an explanation in Islam. And that is that events exist before they occur. We know they're going to attack Pakistan. We know for certain that they have to destroy Pakistan's nuclear plants and nuclear weapons and denuclearize Pakistan and maybe break up Pakistan in the process. We know that they have to ensure that the world of Islam does not possess a nuclear deterrent before Israel can wage her big wars to subdue the Arabs around the state of Israel and the world of Islam. We know that. But it would be helpful, wouldn't it, if we know when that event is going to take place. Events exist before they occur. And so the fire existed in the samawat before the fire occurred in the material universe. The event had been created by Allah, but He was not responsible for it. And the event had to pass through the different worlds of space and time before it could eventually unfold and occur in this world. And so it would be manifestly beneficial in terms of gathering information. I mean, even President Ronald Reagan had one of these people in the White House, you know. The people who read your hand and who read the coffee cup and so on. Ronald Reagan had one of them. It would be manifestly beneficial if we could understand the subject of the different dimensions of space and time, and we could penetrate the different dimensions of space and time for the purpose of giving benefit to the Ummah at this critical moment in our history. I'm conscious of the fact that, and with this we'll end, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has declared, Allahu nuru samawati wal ard, that Allah is the nur of the heavens and of the earth. And therefore, I offer the opinion that it is light which has to be studied. That it is with light that we can penetrate the other worlds of space and time. And then finally, I offer one more comment before we turn over to the specialist here. That in Surah Al-Mulk, in Surah Al-Mulk of the Quran, Allah says, الَّذِي خَلَقَ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ طِبَاقًا مَا تَرَى فِي خَلْقِ الرَّحْمَنِ مِنْ تَفَاوُتٍ فَارْجِعِ الْبَصَرَ هَلْ تَرَى مِنْ فُتُورٍ ثُمَّ ارْجِعِ الْبَصَرَ كَرَّتَيْنِ يَنْقَلِبْ إِلَيْكَ الْبَصَرُ خَاسِئًا وَهُوَ حَسِيرٌ. That it is basira which travels on the vehicle of nur. The vehicle for penetrating the samawat is nur. But the passenger on the vehicle who will actually observe the samawat is basira. That we can at least be able to observe. Hal tara min futur, do you see? Allah is asking us, do you see? Hence it's possible for us to penetrate and to therefore observe the samawat. This has been an introduction to the subject of Surah Al Kahfi and the samawat, and we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may bless us to further our understanding and our knowledge of the subject. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا يَا مَوْلَانَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ بِرَحْمَتِكَ يَا أَرْحَمَ الرَّاحِمِينَ آمين. There's one thing I forgot, and that is that there's a chapter in this book, written of course by an amateur, Surah Al Kahfi in the modern age, I think it is chapter 2, in which I've attempted an explanation of the subject of the Quran and time.
After the Sheikh has given his very insightful talk, so inshallah those will be the question and answer session. So I would like to, what should be the modality?
I would like to suggest, if I may, that we first have the question and answer session where questions will be posed pertaining to the presentation, so that we can make then way for the next part, which will be a far more interesting part. Not a question and answer, the far more interesting part is where we have comments, and our scholars present here will have a chance to offer their views, to take the subject further to where I took it.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Jazakallah khairan. This morning after Fajr, I came to home and I read Surah Al Kahfi. I made some calculations of the night and I came idea about it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, one day in the universe equals 1,000 years. Okay? If this is a linear equation, if you calculate this 300 and 309, you will find it about 7 hours. The sleeping time days. If we sleep at 9 o'clock and we raise up about 5 o'clock for Salah, it is this 7 hours. What do you think about that?
On a subject on which I don't have knowledge.
Any other question concerning the Sheikh's presentation here?
Sorry,
Assalamu alaikum, sir. I would like to go back to the beginning of your presentation when you talked about the signs. Actually, before that small technical problems, you mentioned something about the smoke. You said maybe in 25 years or something like that. I would like to ask about it.
Okay, but we're moving away from the subject. I'll answer you. All right. This book here. Give me Gog and Magog. An Islamic view of Gog and Magog in the modern world. I have made an effort to look at the subject in the modern age, in a scholarly way. It's the last book I've written. I have identified the Magog of the Quran with modern-day Russia, and I've identified the Gog of the Quran with the Anglo-American Israeli NATO alliance. And I'm anticipating the clash of the two to be what is hinted at in the Quran in Surah Al Kahfi. وَتَرَكْنَا بَعْدَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَمُوجُ فِي بَعْضٍ. The two bodies of water can either crash against each other, or two bodies of water can merge with each other. I think both the meanings are here. وَتَرَكْنَا بَعْدَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَمُوجُ فِي بَعْضٍ. The clash of Gog and Magog seems to me to be around the corner, maybe 20-25 years from now. A nuclear war that many great scholars have already anticipated, and that after that war takes place, the war that comes after that will be fought with bows and arrows. If a nuclear weapon explodes, it produces a mushroom cloud. What's going to happen when thousands of nuclear weapons explode? And goodbye Chicago, goodbye New York, goodbye LA. My gosh, heaven has disappeared. Goodbye Moscow. Goodbye Singapore. Well, nobody's going to miss Singapore. I want to suggest that it is that coming nuclear war, which I describe as the Gog and Magog war, that is going to produce the Dukhan. Dajjal has to rule the world from Jerusalem. It therefore has forced the submission of the Arabs and the submission of the Muslims. This is coming now. The Arab uprisings are meant to prepare the way for the war that's going to be launched on the Arabs. But there are two powerful forces in the world, both nuclear armed, which will not bend their knees before Israel. The United States could enter into a number of treaties with them and appear to be friendly. But Putin is not a fool. No. And Russia will not submit to Israel ruling over Russia. And China will not submit to Israel ruling over China. That's not going to happen. And that's why Russia is being surrounded now by nuclear missiles. Surrounded by nuclear missiles after the demise of the Soviet Union. And so the attack on Russia and the attack on China must take place. No getting away. If our eschatology is correct, if the Prophet is correct about Dajjal, the false Messiah. So I believe that that is the Dukhan that is coming. Any other question?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm just taking this question a bit further. You are foreseeing something and you talked about it today. My question, the same question, I'm repeating what Dr. Iqbal asked again, but I want your answer. Pastor Boy can I want to share. I hope this refers to you or thank you. Allah Iqbal asked the question then, I am asking this question now.
Iqbal asked the question then, and you are asking the question
now.
What is
I
the question?
Pastor Boy can I want to share. Oh, nations of the East, so what is to be done? You are forcing certain things. What are we to do? Just sit down and do nothing, or to do something? What are we to do? Thank you.
Our subject of today's discussion is basically scientific. I would rather that we utilize the time that we have. I came here to learn today, really, than to teach. And the question, while it is an important one, is directed towards how should the world of Islam respond. Okay? I believe that one of the ways that we can respond is to study this subject. Study this subject. Because in this subject, I believe there's very important knowledge for us. For example, I did give an example. I said, we know that they're going to attack Pakistan nuclear plants and nuclear weapons. And it will be beneficial for us if we have advance notice. Okay? Umar radiallahu ta'ala was standing on the minbar giving the khutbah. The Muslim army was thousands of miles away, fighting on the battlefield of jihad. And he was able to anticipate an attack which was about to be launched from the rear. How did he see it? And he called out to the commander-in-chief of the Muslim army and said to him, to the rear, watch to the rear. When he returned to Medina, he confirmed that he got the command. And he directed his attention to the rear from where an attack was about to be launched. And he was able to take preventative action. Why can't we now make the effort to penetrate the subject to such an extent that we can protect our people the way he protected the Muslim army? I have some ideas on the subject, but they're not scientific. And I am hoping today that we get some scientific input into the subject. Yeah.
Yes, I'm Sheikh Imran. Jazakallah khair for this. Yeah. I would like to comment about the subject and the relation between the life and time itself. You give an example about the dream and the possibility that the events that already occurring in the samawat and they will existing in the samawat, and later on they will appear in the physical world, dimension of
exist there and now they appear here.
So my first branch of the question is, so what's the implication of this thing in relation to the predestined choices that we make, since the events already occurred, in, let's say a house is burning, already occurred in the samawat, is it? And you have a dream about it, and later on it happens in the physical world of us, in three-dimension world. So in this case, we are provided with choices, isn't it? So what's your comment about, this is the first bit I need to give. So what's the relation between the given choice and the ability of us and the ability of our to make the choice itself in this scenario in relation to the time?
Okay, yeah. no knowledge of events which already exist can reach us unless Allah permits it. And He has been doing that all through the history of His Ummah, even before that. In the phenomenon of true dreams and true visions, there are 4 of them in Surah Surah Yusuf. 4 of them. And there is one of Ibrahim alayhi salam, seeing in his dream sacrificing his son. Probably 2 or 3 more others in the Quran, probably 7 or 8 of them in the Quran. And even in the Seerah, many companions receiving true dreams and visions. Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam receiving true dreams and visions. So this is a phenomenon which has been recurring in the history of His Ummah. It is nothing new. Sometimes the knowledge that comes makes us smile. And we are happy. ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون الذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون لهم البشرى في الحياة الدنيا. This is bushra, a good news for the believers. But what about the fellow who saw birds picking bread on his head? And Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam gave him the meaning of that vision. It's a vision. It wasn't good news. Bad news being conveyed to him. And so the communication that comes from the other world can be good, can be bad. But nothing can occur without Allah's knowledge. Nothing. Even the act of suicide. And we're actually getting away from our subject today now. I didn't want this to happen. Allah knows everything. Yes. But Allah is not responsible for your choice. You are responsible for your choice. When you are given knowledge of that which is to occur, it is sometimes to give you a warning, to give you a chance to redeem yourself, because you do not know what is the last thing written. When you are given knowledge of that which is to occur, sometimes it is to give you solace in your lonesome heart, to give you solace in your grieving heart. Hold on, don't give up. Because the sun is going to shine tomorrow, as it did for the young man in the cave. Sometimes you're given knowledge in order to build morale. And sometimes you're given knowledge in order to point to you in what direction you should go. And so after Badr, and after Uhud, and after Khandaq, and after the enemy had given everything he could give to warfare, and he has not been successful in eliminating us. Then came the vision of making tawaf around the Kaaba. And so Nabi Muhammad gave the announcement, I'm heading to Makkah. This is called a peace offensive in international relations. A peace offensive. Brilliantly planned and brilliantly executed. And it placed the enemy on the horns of a dilemma. I mean, this is absolutely brilliant. So communication can come from this Samawat, through dreams, through visions, which are of different kinds. And it is for us in today's session to try not just to understand this subject from the point of view of quantum mechanics or the theory of relativity as to whether gravity belongs to the material universe or whether gravity is something which is shared by the samawat. More important than the understanding of this subject, more important than that, is the capacity to penetrate the samawat. What is the methodology of penetrating the samawat? And we want a scientific answer. I don't know if Dr. Mira is there.
Thank you for your beneficial talk. You have been beneficial for me last 5 years. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. So I have a comment on this subject today, that the Prophet ﷺ taught us about the dream. He said, how do we see dream? When we sleep, the ruh, it comes out of our body and then it travels. So according to my understanding, ruh is nur. So according to Einstein, he said that when you have a speed more than the speed of light, you can pass different dimensions of time. You can travel through different dimensions of time. Since the ruh is light, so according to my understanding, this ruh can travel more than the speed of light. So when we see dream, according to the scientists, the duration of a dream is like 3 seconds or 4 seconds. So I'm not a good student, sometimes I sleep in the class. Just like this, I go like this and I explain the dream to my friend for like hours. So he says, you have just slept for like 3 seconds, how can you explain this to me for like hours and hours? So time here, like 3 seconds I slept and I have a dream of like hours. So I don't understand this subject, but I'm not an engineering student or science student. So if you have any insight of this, why time differs here and there when we see dreams?
Well, I have one thing in common with you. We both used to sleep in the classroom. We both used to sleep in the classroom. The ruh is created from nur. Very clearly, you were correct. That Allah causes the nafs, not the ruh, the nafs, to be taken out of the body at the time of maut. Maut being the definition of maut. The definition of maut, which no medical professor can give. The definition of maut is when Allah takes the soul and does not return it. Okay? That is maut. Oh, can it be otherwise? Can it be otherwise? When Allah takes the soul, and I'm using the English language, I should not. When Allah takes the nafs, and does not return it. What is the nafs? We can use the word soul, perhaps, but it could be confusing. It's better to use the word self, S-E-L-F, self. Okay. In Surah Al-Zumar, I hope we don't have any bankers present here. You know, people who lend money and interest. You know what Allah could do to them in the grave, right? Allahu yatawaffa al-anfusa hina mawtiha. Allahu yatawaffa al-anfus. Anfus, not ruh. Allah takes the anfus, Allah takes the nafs at the time of maut. Excuse me. Nafs, the self. Maut, death. وَالَّتِي لَمْ تَمُتْ فِي مَنَامِهَا. Which surah is this? Huh? Oh, somebody didn't have breakfast this morning. No. Zumar is correct. Allah yatawaffa al-anfusa hina mawtiha. Allah takes the nafs at the time of maut. وَالَّتِي لَمْ تَمُتْ فِي مَنَامِهَا. For those who do not experience maut while they are awake, Allah takes the nafs while they are asleep. فَيُمْسِكُ الَّذِي قَضَى عَلَيْهَا الْمَوْتِ وَيُرْسِلُ الْأُخْرَى إِلَى أَجَلٍ مُسَمًّى. He then keeps those nafs for whom maut is ordained, and then returns the rest for a determined period of time. In other words, the nafs can leave the body. And while the nafs has left the body, because death has not been ordained, the body will not decompose. No. If the nafs is taken from the body and maut is written, then the body will decompose. But you're going to have to wait a couple of days to see that. I didn't know that. So they took the banker. They thought he was dead. This is how Allah punishes in the grave. And they gave him the ghusl. And they clothed him with the kafan. And you know the smell of the camphor from the bath. And they performed the Salatul Janazah thinking he was dead. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min azab al-qabr. We make dua, oh Allah Ta'ala, kindly protect us from this punishment. This is one of the punishments of the grave. One of them. And then they buried him. When they buried him, they forgot to leave a cell phone inside there. And then Allah returned the soul. When He returned the soul, he woke up as from asleep. It happens every night. And then, why is the place so dark? So dark. So dark. He calls out to his wife, no answer. Yeah. And then he turns to get up. He cannot get up. No space to get up. And he's in a state of utter confusion. Utter confusion. Utter confusion. I tell you, when you and I think about this, that this can happen to us, it's a wake-up call, right? It's a wake-up call. And then he lies down with insects crawling over his body, and insects biting him. Can't do anything. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعَذَابِ. And be conscious of the fact that Allah is terrible in His punishment. And He's in His own urine. And He's in His own stool. He's smelling His own stool. And now, you know what is Allah's punishment. So from this we know that the nafs can leave the body. The nafs can travel. The nafs can travel. And the nafs can return to the body with the knowledge of what it has seen and experienced while traveling. Is this the route? Is this the route through which we can experience the samawat? If it is, then Allah has to choose you. You can make dua for it, you can make ibadah, but only if Allah chooses you would the angel take the nafs out of the body. And the nafs can then travel. But in Surah Al Mulk, فَارْجِعِ الْبَصَرَ هَلْ تَرَى مِنْ فُتُورٍ, it's not the nafs which is traveling, but basira. It is vision which travels. So you and I have one thing in common: we used to sleep in the classroom, and in sleep you sometimes have visions, and a vision will give you in an instant that which can encompass a world, because this is this dimension of time and that is that dimension of time. Where are the scientists?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have three brief points. The first point is about the Dajjal. Okay, my question is about your interpretation of the Dajjal and its identification with Israel, because that can give us a type of feeling that this will happen, that this should happen. So this type of predestined, fatalistic interpretation may not be fair for Muslims to surrender to that reality, if it is the reality. But this regard, my question is same like Jani's question. And my second point is about dreams.
Well, I did say, whenever I give my opinion, kindly reject my opinion. I ask of you, kindly reject it. And do not accept it, unless and until you are convinced that it is correct. Otherwise, I'll be disappointed in you. This is the way my own teacher trained me. And this is the way I want to train my students, okay? If you say that I'm wrong, then you must tell me what is right. But do not accept my opinion. I want to say it one more time to all of you here, the students. When I give my opinion, do not accept it until you are convinced that it is correct. And for that, you've got to do research. For example, if we have the time, the age of Aisha, when you say, and Bukhari says, the Prophet married her when he's alive. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for that clarification. The second point is about dreams. Sometimes dreams can also be false, satanic dreams. So it's also in practice difficult to distinguish which dream is true and which dream is satanic.
All right. There's a book outside entitled, no, we're out of print of that book, Dreams in Islam. Do please remind me to schedule a lecture on this subject of dreams in Islam. Dreams are of three kinds. The Prophet ﷺ explained. There are dreams which are from Allah, there are dreams which are from shaitan, and there are dreams which are from your own nafs. How can you distinguish between dreams? That's one question. What is the interpretation of dreams? That's another question. This subject is not taught by anyone. You can't study it in any book. Only Allah gives the knowledge of the interpretation of dreams. However, to distinguish between a dream which has come from Allah, and the dream which has come from shaitan, and the dream which has come from your own nafs, it is intuitive insight that gives you the answer to that question. Yes, please.
And the third point is about Surah Al Kahfi itself. Well, the Quran refers to Ashab Al Kahfi. وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ. But God Himself turns them on different sides.
Yes.
On this indicates probably the human could not move, they were not sleeping. And this was a different state. Probably like the caravan is moving, and we remain behind, we stay behind, and we don't join the caravan, the time is moving and we are here.
I think every married man knows that when you sleep, you move and your wife moves. It happens every night when sleeping. You can be asleep and yet you can move from side to side. Yeah. When the Quran says they were asleep, they were asleep. When the Quran says they were moving from left to right, they were moving from left to right while asleep. I think this is clear from the Quran. Dr. Mira.
Assalamualaikum, Sheikh. Thank you very much for the interesting talk. I'm also not a scientist, but I'm very interested in this topic. So I have a question. Sheikh, remember in the story of Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, the person who brought the throne of Queen Sheba brought it within a split of a second. And it's mentioned in the Quran, there's one who has been given the ilmul kitab, is able to do it. In other words, if you have the ilmul kitab, you might be able to transcend this time and spatial domain. So my question is, can we, anyone living today, be able to have this, attain this ilmul kitab to transcend? And what is the benefit or significance of having this knowledge for this time? Particularly when this is mentioned in the story of people of the cave. It's something important for the present time. Thank you.
It's a very pertinent observation, a very important question, Dr. Mira. Ilm al-Kitab. The reason why this subject was scheduled for today and this gathering was to provoke precisely that kind of research work that needs to be done. Most of our scientists pursue knowledge in a secular embrace, and that secular embrace is hostile to religion. And so if you are a scientist and you're preparing a research paper and you make a reference to the Quran, that's it, your career is over. Your career is over. Because they look down upon religion. Bringing knowledge from the Quran is like bringing knowledge from Disneyland. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ آمِنُوا كَمَا آمَنَ النَّاسُ قَالُوا أَنُؤْمِنُوا كَمَا آمَنَ السُّفَهَاءُ, says the Quran. They look down upon religion. In Surah Al Kahfi, we have the story or the event of the encounter of Musa alayhi salam with Khidr alayhi salam. And Khidr alayhi salam embodies knowledge internally received. وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِنْ لَدُنَّ عِلْمًا, says Allah in the Quran. But when Musa alayhi salam said, I am the most learned of all men, and Allah said to him, no, you're not. There's one more learned than you are. And of course, he's not Banu Israel. So this must have come as a rude shock to Banu Israel. There's someone who is not an Israelite and who is more learned than the Israelites. Khidr alayhi salam. He says, I want to meet him. That servant of yours who is more learned than I am. And Surah Al Kahfi told us that you would meet him at Majma'ul Bahrain. at the place where the two oceans meet. And Imam al-Baydawi in his tafsir recognizes this to be religious symbolism. He recognizes this ocean to symbolize knowledge externally acquired, and that ocean to be symbolizes knowledge internally received. And so yes, we have to bring all the verses of the Quran pertaining to the subject of our relations with the Samawat, bring them all together and try to bind them all together as a harmonious whole. But I can't do that. No. Because you need to have Majma'ul Bahrain. You need to have also studied the subject from the viewpoint of physics. You would have studied quantum mechanics, you would have studied the theory of relativity, you would have studied all that modern physics has given to you on the subject of the different dimensions of space and time. And when you bring these two worlds of knowledge together, this is Ilmul Kitab, not just what is in the Quran. Because the Kitab is directing you towards that as well. And it is my hope and prayer that from this gathering here today, there might be someone who will take up a PhD thesis on the subject and do what Einstein could not do, because Einstein did not have the Quran.
Assalamu alaikum. My question is that as you describe the Surah Al Kahfi and the story of the people of the faith in terms of the different time and spatial dimensions. However, I mean, it's a good attempt to understand many, narrations in the Quran, to understand the mystery, to understand the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it will keep unfolding with the, discoveries and mention the science. Because Allah says that سَنُرِيهِمْ فِي آيَاتِنَا سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ. So that's okay, because Allah, basically this ayat tells that the scientific inventions and discoveries will establish, the facts that have been described in Quran. But at the same time, I'd like to say that, the penetration in different time and space dimensions, it's not the capability of every person, rather the capability of a human being. It's especially granted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this light, I would like to know what is the ultimate lesson and lesson from this story of the people of Caves, because the Quran has been as a nasiha and the lesson to mankind. So in this perspective, what you will advise to our the present day Muslim Ummah, and especially this gathering of our intellectuals and students, to overcome the present scenario and to deal with the present circumstances in the world. Thank you very much.
لنعلم أي الحزبين أحصى لما لبثوا أمدا. The Quran itself answers your question. That the story or the event of Ashabul Kahf, Allah says He has caused this to occur in order to teach the subject of time. That is the answer to your question, given not by me but by the Quran. And therefore the ball is now in our court. We have to do the homework. You do not study the Quran piecemeal. If you do that, then at the very beginning of the Quran, Allah gives you the mother of all warnings. That this is lazy scholarship. that he ordered the angels to make sajda before Adam alayhi salam, فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسِ. So as a lazy scholar, you say, well, the angels were ordered to make sajda before Adam alayhi salam, and they all made sajda except Iblis. The inescapable implication, can't get away from it, is that Iblis was an angel. This is lazy scholarship. And Allah is not deficient in the use of language. No. This sentence is constructed this way deliberately to teach usul al-tafsir, to teach methodology for the pursuit of knowledge, for the study of the Quran. As you broadcast on CNN and Al Jazeera that Iblis was an angel, and it is already known all over the world, then you continue now with your study of the rest of the Quran, and then you get a shock. Oh my gosh, what a mistake I have made. This lazy scholarship has landed me in a mess. Because the Quran tells us angels don't have any free will. No. وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. Whatever they are ordered to do, they have no choice. They must do it. So when Allah ordered them to make sajda, they had no choice. They had to do it. But that fellow had choice. He could choose to obey or choose to disobey. And he chose to disobey. He cannot be an angel. What a mess I've made of my name now, because it's bandied all over by CNN and Al Jazeera. I said that Iblis was an angel. And I don't have the time to continue the analysis, but then Surah Al Kahfi said, وَكَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. So that is lazy scholarship. Proper scholarship is to begin with Surah Al Kahfi, with the story of the young men in the cave, لِنَعْلَمَ أَيُّ الْحِزْبَيْنِ أَحْصَىٰ لِمَا لَبِثُوا أَمَدًا, to teach the subject of time, and then go to all the rest of the data in the Quran. Locate all the rest of the data in the Quran and seek to bind them together as a harmonious whole. My teacher, rahimahullah, in his book, The Quranic Foundations and Structure of Muslim Society, 2 volumes, he calls this the system of meaning of the subject. When you've located that system of meaning of the subject from the Quran, then you go to the ahadith. And you will now incorporate into your database those ahadith which are in harmony with the Quran. And when you find a hadith like this one in Bukhari, he married her when she was 6 and consummated the marriage when she was 9. When you find something in the hadith which is manifestly in conflict with the Quran, you stay with the Quran, not with that. You see? And so you have to now do your homework, as I was saying to Dr. Mira. The scientists in our community of Muslims, the scientists, you have to do it, not Imran. You have to take the totality of the data in the Quran on the subject of the different dimensions of space and time. You have to bind them together as a harmonious whole using your knowledge of physics, or whatever is a branch of physics. It's not astrophysics, it's some other branch of physics. You will have that knowledge of the external world, derived from the external world, with which to be able to spot to recognize and to bind this database into a harmonious whole. And then turn to the ahadith to complement what is in the Quran and to expand the database. And then you'll be able to explain the subject. What I have done today, I have done what I could do. I can't do more than this.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yeah, Sheikh. Actually, this is not a question, but basically just an opinion. Just because you pose the hypothesis on the possibility of human being to be simultaneously to be in the material universe and the samawat. So there are two things which I you find very close to this. I mean, very linked. One is sleep, because every time when God talks about shifting the time, the dimension, God always associated with sleep, like in the Surah Al Kahfi or Surah Al on the traveler. And there's another thing is on the light. So basically sleep, there's a period of time where we have this state of REM, like in IIUM, where we are indulged in deep sleep and where we have dreams, things like that.
Allow me to interrupt you 1 second, please.
Yes,
I should have mentioned, not only sleep. The Prophet said, As-salatu mi'raj al-mu'min. Namely, it is possible to travel while in salat. Go ahead.
All right. Hello. Okay. That's another thing. It is also very linked to light. When we talk about the theory of relativity, we talk about the movement relative to each other, except for Einstein said, except for light. So basically, light travel is not in relative to other things, and hence the time-space continuum theory. So I am in the opinion that like sleep, and like the Surah Al-Muzammil, where God asks you to wake up in the middle of the night, and then there's a hadith where the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asks us to sleep, take a short sleep before subuh, right? Before the subuh prayer. So there might be some link there between the time of sleep. You have to sleep and then you wake up, and then you have to sleep back to get back to your time, and then the light. So traveling, if we are able to move in the speed of light through the particle accelerator. Now we have this like the particle accelerator, we try to accelerate particles to the speed of light. They want to see the effects. So basically, this is just an opinion. I don't know whether people have other comments to that.
Are you on the staff or you're a student?
I was a student.
You were a student. You're no longer a student.
No.
Okay. Perhaps you're the one to do the PhD? Yes, because I am very pleased with your comments, and it shows that there is some promise. I would like to encourage amongst the graduate students somebody who will take up the subject at the doctoral research level, and try to penetrate the subject. My last comment really is that you will not, unless Allah allows you to. You cannot unless Allah gives you nur. And Allah will not put nur in your heart when your heart is cluttered up with rubbish. When the mind is cluttered up with rubbish. So you need to first take a bath. Ghusl. How do you take ghusl of the mind? Huh? The ghusl of the mind takes place through the continuous recitation of the Quran. Reciting the Quran means reciting the Quran cover to cover, cover to cover, all through your life. Uncle Sam is going to be very angry with you if you do that. You know Uncle Sam? Modern Western civilization which has dazzled mankind absolutely dazzle mankind. And there's so much in modern Western civilization that is a mirror of what is in Islam. Except they're doing it better than we are doing it. Modern Western civilization also has within it the destruction of the religious way of life. Absolute destruction of the religious way of life. So they will be very angry with the people who insist on eating with your hands. How barbaric! Eating with your hands? But you can't get a Malay to eat curry fish and rice with knife and fork. I won't be Malay. You could get him to do that in Islamabad in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but not the Malay. So recite the Quran cover to cover. And as you continuously recite the Quran, it cleanses the mind and the heart and washes away the rubbish. Number 2, the Prophet said that one of the signs of the last day is that women would be dressed and yet naked. If you move to the remote countryside, you know Dajjal doesn't go there. Kampung, and you know you're in Kampung when you cannot use a cell phone. Now you're in Kampung. And you never see a woman dressed and yet naked. And then one day you come back to KLCC. The first time you see a woman dressed and yet naked, your heart will begin to shudder. Oh my gosh, this is what the Prophet said would happen. Look, here it is before my eyes. And then fear will envelop your heart. And then anger, and then sadness, and all kinds of things. And then finally you remember, Man ra'a munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi. Change it with your hand. I can't change it with my hand. The modern feminist revolution has come to stay. And if you can't, then change it with your tongue. You can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, they're not going to change. And if you cannot, then you will change it with your heart. How do you change munkar with your heart? This is my answer. If I cannot change it with my hand and I cannot change it with my tongue, then the way that I change it with my heart is to depart from it. Depart from it. I will not live amongst you. So long as you're using this bogus and fraudulent and utterly haram paper currencies, and I can't change it, I'm out of here. I will not live amongst you. When you do that, and you move out, you distance yourself, you withdraw, you disconnect, which is what they did in Surah Al Kahfi. Then the purity of the heart will be restored. The innocence of the heart will be restored. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Salimul qalb. The heart will be restored to its health, its innocence, its purity. It is that heart which can receive nur. It is that heart you could then do the doctoral research to penetrate this subject. But if the heart is such that you see them dressed and yet naked, morning, evening and night, nothing happens in the heart. No, it's commonplace now. Then that heart is not fit to receive nur.
The last question on this paper is it halal if we use the knowledge to preserve human life for 300 years?
Is it halal?
Is it halal? Yes.
To do what?
To use this knowledge to preserve human life.
Cyber.
Can we call it halal? Can we, if we pursue this knowledge and it is something that we possess now, do we use it to preserve life? I mean, this is, I think, it's an application problem. I have a question now.
I really cannot answer the question now. What I would like to ask is that you attempt to answer the question, how is it possible? How is it possible for the bodies of the young men to be most certainly located in this material universe? In the world of space, because left and right. In the world of time, because morning and evening. Because sunlight. And yet be in another world of space and time, non-biological, where you can have the passage of 300 years and yet not age biologically. That is the question I posed in my lecture. That question cannot be answered until you penetrate the subject of time. Einstein has done his work. Where are our scholars? This is a cry from, this is not my field. I am in the field of history and politics and economics. Politics and economics and history and so on. This is not my field. But I am here to make a cry for our scholars to come forward and do what Einstein could not do because he didn't have the Quran. So he can be able to answer this question.
All praise and grace is due to Allah. We've come to the end of the lecture section. I've been asked to also announce that there will be a subsequent program on eschatology, that is the knowledge of which the President has just presented now, and that in due course we'll make this announcement known to us. Please, as usual, you'll be our guest and we'll be glad to have a field house like this once again. I'd like also to call on Professor Shafi to make the presentation of thanks to our esteemed teacher who has given us this rare opportunity of listening to this part of the Quran that is not often discussed. Inshallah, the Sheikh will also be around much later in the year, but his itinerary is full. If you want more information on his talks, you can go to his website, check on his talk. And also, I'm using also this opportunity also to reiterate that he is interested in students taking up the subject of eschatology. Please, if anybody is interested in this area, please see him personally before he leaves. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So we'll recite the closing dua while asked.